All right, now that we've got the first video out of the way, time for team number 2. And that's you, Brian. So you had the 13th pick. You're going to go the same thing. If you didn't watch the first video, you can go on the Fantasy Football League page. You can go down by the draft. You can go on the Google sheet that we still have pulled up. I'm just going to be hitting each team, top to bottom, round 1, round 18. Thoughts, maybe free agency moves they made them, and go from there. So first round, took Dalvin Cook. Right before you took Cook, Julio Jones and Odell Beckham had been taken. Right after you've taken Cook, as I mentioned in the previous video, Jordan Howard and Devontae Freeman were taken. So, first blush, thoughts. I love Cook. If I had a late first-round pick, Cook was the pick. If I had a second-round pick and Cook had fallen that far, he was the pick. Cook was amazing last year. He only played 4 games. He got hurt in the 4th game. But in those 4 games, he was the best fantasy running back in football. He was a bell cow. I did not expect Mike Zimmer to use him like that. I know there are some concerns. Oh, they have Adam Thielen. Oh, they have Stephon Diggs. Oh, we've signed Kirk Cousins to $90 million guaranteed. Overpay. Oh, we have Latavius Murray there to take goal line touches. None of that concerns me. Dalvin Cook is the best running back, possibly in the NFC, maybe more so even than Todd Gurley, just because of his ability to create, his explosive ability to cut. Gurley's really great at receiving, which is why he was the number 1 fantasy back last year. But Cook was out. I can't stress how good Cook was those 4 games. He was a monster. If you can get those 4 games for an entire season, he's the number 1 fantasy back in football, bar none. It's just a worry of injury concerns, and then maybe they don't work him as hard so he doesn't get hurt, because I know he was, the number of attempts had racked up. He was averaging like 20 attempts a game before he got hurt, roughly, because he got hurt on like the 14th carry or so in the 4th game. So they were running pretty hard. Maybe Murray symphonies off some goal line touches, and that, maybe that hurts his value a little bit, but gosh, I mean, Cook is just, he's a top 5 running back. There are some running backs, like, I like him more than, like, some running backs that are taken ahead of him, like Melvin Gordon, cough, cough, wink, wink. Alvin Kamara, cough, cough, wink, wink. It's just one of the better picks in the first round. So, love it. Great pick. Second round, Michael Thomas. So, I was a little surprised by this. Mostly because, I like Michael Thomas, and I will admit that there's upside there, because Drew Brees is going to play better than he did last year. He only threw for 23 touchdowns last year, and that is a low for him when he's played in New Orleans. You'd have to go back to his San Diego days for something that low. And, the defense in New Orleans is better, and Alvin Kamara is great, and Mark Ingram's good, and they're going to obviously light it up. And run the ball and be balanced, but at the same time, Michael Thomas is really good. I didn't realize how good he was until I really dug it in. Michael Thomas, for example, since he's been drafted in 2016, only Antonio Brown has scored more fantasy points than him. I did not know that. I did not know that he was top 10 in receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns. I did not know that. I didn't know his target share was basically, it's 28%, so close to 30% of the offense. The target share goes through him. That's in Drew Brees' offense with a guy who typically, even when Jimmy Graham was there, they typically spread around. Brandon Cooks was there Michael Thomas's first year. Going back to Jimmy Graham days, Marcus Colston, Reggie Bush. Just naming guys like Mark Ingram. He just spreads the ball around, moves it around, adds people. No. Thomas is eating up like close to a third of the entire offense, which is incredible to consider, because Brees would only be throwing him the ball if he was actually open, which means, and if you look at the tape, he creates separation. He's got speed. He's physical. He's not very tall, but it doesn't really matter because he does everything else well. He's still learning routes, but he's like a young Antonio Brown. It's kind of scary. So while I was surprised that you didn't take DeAndre Hopkins, digging deeper, I understand it. Cooks is only going into his 3rd year in the NFL. There's still upside there. If we go by the assumption that last year was Hopkins' like absolute peak, and he was terrific. He was the best fantasy like wide receiver in our league, other than Antonio Brown, obviously, but he was fabulous. If we go by, say, I don't know, compare Cooks to having Drew Brees healthy throwing him the ball the whole season, could he eclipse that? Possibly, and I'm surprised by that. So, while I still haven't DeAndre Hopkins ranked higher, because I've seen him do it, because he's incredible, there's upside. There's more upside with Cooks than there is with Hopkins, because, well, not Cooks. I keep saying Cooks, but I mean Michael Thomas. There's more upside with Michael Thomas, and the reason is because the ball's going to go to him. And if you think Drew Brees is going to have a bounce back, it's a good pick, because even though I love DeAndre Hopkins, Thomas is going to see the ball a lot. They're going to throw him the ball. And I'm confusing him with your next pick, which is Brandon Cooks. So sorry about that if I've confused you, but I don't love Brandon Cooks as much. There are multiple reasons for that, but basically, if you think about it, Brandon Cooks, the last 2 years, last year he was with Tom Brady. The year before he was with Drew Brees. So that's 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks on 2 teams with Hall of Fame coaches that have traded him away. And now he's in LA. And he's got the Sammy Watkins role last year. And I don't know if a lot of people are paying attention. I mean, I like Sammy Watkins. He's very talented player. He's in Kansas City. He signed for, I think, $65 million, some obscene amount of money that he does not deserve. Sorry, he's always injured. But I like Cooks. I like his talent. But there's a lot of mouths to feed in LA. All right, there's Todd Gurley, who I mentioned earlier. Todd Gurley is amazing. He's the number 1 fantasy pick in our league. He's going to see the ball like 300 times. Then on top of that, even if you discount, like, say, I don't know, their backup running back, John Kelly, who they're going to run, or say you discount, like, their tight ends who they don't give the ball, and say you're going to assume, oh, Jared Goff's not going to run all that much. Well, okay, we can discount all of those things, but at the end of the day, you're going to give the ball to Todd Gurley. You're going to try and find Robert Woods. When you're in the red zone, you're going to throw to Cooper Kupp. Your tight end is Tyler Higbee, who you probably have never heard of. He scored 8 touchdowns last year. 8 touchdowns, 8 receiving touchdowns. Nobody knows. Just tight end in the middle of nowhere, scored some touchdowns. So, like, it's a lot of mouths to feed. And if you saw Sammy Watkins last year in that Rams offense, it was not good. I mean, I think there was one game he scored like a 65-yard touchdown, and that was awesome. That's a huge amount of points. That was the only catch he had the whole game. Like, that's literally what you're hoping for with Cooks. You're hoping for, like, those big monster reception, touchdown, crazy, awesome, makes your day games. And while that's great, like, I can't say that's going to happen half the time. Maybe it happens a third of the time. Maybe you think it's worth it. Maybe 4 or 5 weeks during the season that happens. And he scores like this great, amazing touchdown. And he gets so many yards on the touchdown that he wins you the week. That has value, obviously. But, like, that's not consistent. That's not how you win games consistently. That's not how... It's a boom or bust pick. I guess that's what I'm really reaching at. It's boom or bust, and I don't love the pick because there were better players on the board. I don't love Doug Baldwin. He's injured right now, but I would have rather taken him than Brandon Cooks because I've seen Baldwin do it on the same team with the same quarterback, and there's no one else to feed now. I would have loved to have had, like, say, I don't know. The next pick was T.Y. Hilton, who I don't like. But T.Y. Hilton's the number 1 receiver on a Colts offense that has no one else to throw to. Like, the Colts have no running back. The Rams have Todd Gurley. It's pretty simple who's going to get the ball a ton. And it's not Brandon Cooks. It's Todd Gurley. Or, I'm in the red zone, I'm going to throw it to Cooper Kupp. Like, that's the problem I have with Brandon Cooks. I don't see the touchdowns. Like, if I'm in the red zone, he is not the first or second or third option. He's like number 4 or 5. It's just not... And I hate that. I hate having a receiver and drafting him high, and he's not like one of the number 1 options in the red zone. Like the fact that the slot receiver, Cooper Kupp's a higher red zone target is not good value for taking Cooks in the third round. I don't like that pick, simply because I don't think he's going to score a lot of touchdowns. If he scores like 4 or 5, great. Wonderful. I'm happy. Maybe he'll win me some weeks, but that's not what I want. I want upside to win a championship. I don't want, this guy's going to win me some weeks, then I'm going to get to playoffs, he's going to suck. I don't want that. It's not consistent enough. You need a little more consistency. I like upside, but I need consistency. He's not consistent enough. Next pick, I also don't like. Sorry. You took Mark Ingram. Now, to be fair, unlike the Cooks pick where I felt like you were just like taking something that you thought there was a lot of upside, but I think that's almost like fool's gold. You're chasing fool's gold in a sense. I think Ingram, for a different reason, it was a reach because you needed a running back, and there had been a run on them, and so I understood why. Like, you can't just like, oh, I'm going to take a third wide receiver in the 4th round. No, you kind of boxed yourself in with the Cooks pick. So if you're going to do that, now you got to draft for need, but at least to your credit, you took the best guy on the board. Ingram's suspended 4 games, which sucks. That's really what kills his value. Like, sure, it's the first 4 games, and you'll get him back for the playoffs if you make it, but it's still a quarter of the season. That's a long time to just not have a guy, and that's discounting if he gets hurt or anything. Like, can you imagine he misses 4 games, you're sitting on your bench and still getting that bench spot, and then he comes in the 5th week and then he gets hurt? Like, it's terrible. It's core of the year you just wasted on a dude who's not going to play for an amount of time. So, but you need to make the pick. He was the best player on the board. I see the other running backs. McCoy, the McCoy pick right before you really sucks because like McCoy at that value is terrific, and he just got taken from you. Some picks right behind you I see are like Kerryon Johnson, Travis Kelce, Rex Burkhead, Fitzgerald, Schuster. So, like, you kind of got stuck because you took Cooks and you shouldn't have taken him. And now you need to take a running back and you're reaching for one. And you probably didn't figure that Patrick would go, like, after he went double running back, he would go, oh, I'm going to take one receiver, but then I'm going to take another running back. Like, you probably thought he'd go double receiver. So you kind of boxed yourself in with the Cooks pick. You drafted for need for Ingram. The Cooks pick really set you back, but to your credit, I like Ingram. I had him on my team last year. People love Kamara. Kamara's great. He's awesome. He scores touchdowns. Ingram is the goal line back. Ingram's the one who's going to get paid. Ingram's in his contract year. He's going to get the ball. I don't care about Kamara because, Kamara's great, but, like, Ingram is good too. Like, people don't understand how good he was last year. He was a top 10 running back. All right, if for whatever reason Kamara got hurt, Ingram would be possibly the number 1 running back because he'd see the ball so much. He gets yards after contact. He gets touchdowns. They feed him the ball. He's a great player. He's gotten better at catching the ball out of the backfield, mysteriously, in the NFL. Who knew that you could teach a Nick Saban running back new things? So, don't love the pick. Understand it, because you boxed yourself in, unfortunately. Next pick was Rashad Penny. Now we're starting to get into that weird, like, I don't know what I think about it, because, like, it's hard. On the one hand, Penny has a lot of talent. He's the number 1 pick out of San Diego State. I thought it was a reach when they took him, but he led college football in rushing last year. He's almost like Darren Sproles, like, only bigger. He bounces off of tacklers. He's not the fastest or strongest guy, but he's really shifty. Like, if you watched him, he's not as agile as Alvin Kamara, but he's shifty. The issue I have, though, see, we're getting into that weird, like, I kind of like this player. I don't love this player. The issue I have is, for whatever reason, Chris Carson's still the number 1 running back in Seattle. And while I think Penny's the more talented player, like, we've seen this Pete Carroll story before. Like, oh, we're going to go out and we're going to draft Russell Wilson in the 3rd round, and we're going to pay this other guy $18 million. He's going to be a starting quarterback, and maybe something comes with Wilson. And then training camp comes, and then lo and behold, Russell Wilson ends up being the starter. Like, it's kind of like that, like, I feel, because I think Penny's talented. They obviously used a 1st-round pick on him. If it was a regular team, they'd be like, oh, yeah, he should be the starter. We used this amount of draft capital to take him. He's a good player. It's not the starter, and that's not good. It's not a good history for guys who've, like, basically get drafted and they're not starting out immediately. Like, last year with Alvin Kamara, people were just like, oh, Alvin Kamara didn't start last year. Try that again. If you look at the first game tape, Alvin Kamara gets 15 touches, which is more than Adrian Peterson or Mark Ingram. And then the Saints are just like, oh, wow, we need to get this guy on the field more. If that doesn't happen with Penny, that's not a good sign. So I feel like you're reaching. I feel like this was a reach, and you felt you needed a running back, and you felt the upside was good, and you got fooled because Penny has not looked good. He's not looked as bad as Ronald Jones, and he's been hurt, and I think he could possibly take the job. But with the 5th pick, I'd rather be a little safer, actually. I would have... There were some good receivers that were on the board. I understand trying to get depth at running back. I love depth at running back, but man, it's a tough swallow. Next pick's Evan Ingram. Another pick. I'm kind of just like, I don't really know. I like Evan Ingram. He was really good last year in his rookie year, but a lot of things had to go his way for that to happen. Like, OBJ had to get hurt. Sterling Shepard had to get hurt. They had to have no running game. He was the only receiver, basically, and he lit it up, and he was a top 5 tight end. But all those guys are back now. Saquon Barkley's in the backfield. They fixed the offensive line. Odell Beckham Jr.'s back. Sterling Shepard's back. They got rid of Brandon Marshall. I don't know exactly where I would slot Evan Ingram in the hierarchy of Giants receiving options. So it's kind of tough because I like the guy. He's got a lot of talent. He's basically like a third receiver. And to get a good third receiver basically playing tight end, that's pretty valuable. But I don't know. Like, he looked really good last year, and he has a really good skill set, and he gets a lot of receptions and touchdowns, gets a lot of yards after catch. He's an every down player. If Delanie Walker's super safe, Evan Ingram's got a lot of upside. So I guess if you really have to pin me down, I don't love the value of taking him in the 6th round, but considering what else was on the board, like the fact that Jimmy Graham, for whatever reason, was taken in this round, and Adrian Peterson was taken in this round, and I think, Randall Cobb was taken in this round, and I took Peyton Barber in this round, which tells me there was not a whole lot of depth going on. So I don't love the pick, but it's one of your better picks. He's a good player. He's got a lot of potential. I don't love him. I don't know what his role in that offense is, unfortunately, because there's just so many people to feed. But he might be able to carve out Jimmy Graham type of tight end role, and that has value because that means there's a lot of touchdowns. And if he becomes the security blanket in the red zone, boom, instant worth it pick. So upside, I get it. Next pick, Marlon Mack. I like Mack. I saw him last year. I saw the real Mack in Virginia. Hi, Mack. Hi, real Mack. Marlon actually went to USF locally, so I actually saw him here. I mean, I know a lot of people are kind of down on him, and I know the Indianapolis offense isn't that good, and I know he's injured right now, and he hasn't been he couldn't supplant Frank Gore last year, and he only was getting 3.8 yards per carry, but I think the dude can ball. I think he's a good player. I think Marlon Mack can be a number 1 running back in this league. I don't care that the Colts don't believe that, and they got Jordan Wilkins and Nyheim Hines. Those guys can play. They're rookie running backs, but you know how many rookie running backs start game 1 who aren't top first round picks? Not a whole lot. I know they're starting Jordan Wilkins, and that was a good pick by Jose. Good sleeper find. I see that. But I think Mack, his ability to pass block is super important in this offense because Andrew Luck is going to get hurt. You can't have him get hurt. Nyheim Hines and Jordan Wilkins, they can be good players. They're more north-south guys. Mack is more explosive. He can get those big carries, but more importantly, he can pass block, and that is something you definitely need when you have Andrew Luck. So I think Mack will pay later on in the season once they realize, he's the guy. So I like the pick because you're going running back, and you took a good running back who I think has talent, and I don't think they use enough. Next pick was Kenny Golladay. Bit of a reach. He's got a lot of talent. When he played last year, Marvin Jones looked like a guy. when he didn't play, Marvin Jones looked like Antonio Brown. So that kind of tells you what happens when Kenny Galladay's on the field. He's big. They call him, his nickname's Babytron. If he's healthy, because frankly, I don't know if he's going to be healthy the entire season because he's just so clumsy. I think, what was it? He missed last year with a soft tissue injury, and he's still like learning the offense, and he was only on the field like 3/4 of the time on offense. He needs to be the number 2 receiver. The problem is Marvin Jones and Golden Tate are right next to him, and he's basically in the slot, but I think he's a good red zone threat. I think it's a good pick to have him. I think taking him basically in this round at this point, like around you, Ronald Jones was taking, Ty Montgomery was taking, like Josh Doxson was in this round. All right, Galladay's the best pick out of all those guys because if Galladay can reach his like ceiling, we're talking like maybe a little under, like not Calvin Johnson ceiling, but top 10 receiver, really, really good, catches touchdowns, is amazing, build an offense around wide receiver, and it could happen this year. So like I totally respect taking the upside in this. Like Ronald Jones was taken in this round. Ronald Jones is garbage. I've watched Ronald Jones. I saw that guy in college. I literally went to a game where Ronald Jones plays. That dude is straight garbage. So the fact that you got Kenny Galladay in the same round as Ronald Jones, I say is a reach. But like if you like the guy and you believe in his upside, total respect because he's a great player. Like if he can figure it out, that is totally worth it. Then you start, you were going into like the defensive players. What round is this? Let's see. 9th round, again, I think I mentioned in the last video, I'd rather you've gone like linebacker, running back, linebacker, receiver, instead of just like linebacker, defensive line. Like, I don't feel like you should be going straight down because, again, then you're putting all those depth pieces at the bottom of your team that you might need. You're putting them much further down than you should be, but, to your credit, you took some good players. I like Telvin Smith. He's a good linebacker. Stays healthy, again, big if, I keep saying that, but he plays on Jacksonville. Blake Bortles isn't good. He's top 10 linebacker. All right, he gets a lot of tackles. He might get some interceptions. He might get some 20-point games. He's very, very good. Bobby Wagner, another good linebacker, plays in Seattle. Seattle's defense, without that Legion of Boom, Cam Chancellor's gone, Richard Sherman's gone, Brandon Browner's gone, Earl Thomas is holding out. Like, that Seattle secondary is bad. That Seattle linebacking core is going to make a lot of tackles. That means there's going to be a lot of points to be had. So I actually like the Bobby Wagner pick more than the Telvin Smith pick, even though it came around later. But both guys are really good. I respect that you basically got 2 of the better linebackers in our league. And then, you kind of did some weird stuff. Like you took Jaleel Addae at safety, and you just cut him, I think. Who's the guy you picked up? You picked up Donnie Jefferson, like, again, unless you got, like, one of the top 3 safeties. Who was it? Like, Landon Collins, Keanu Neal, or Rashad Jones. Unless you got one of those 3 safeties, they're all the same. So, like, that was a reach. I don't think you should have done that. Obviously, you just cut the guy, so probably you felt the same way. Okay, here's an interesting pick. You took Mahomes. So you took Mahomes in the 11th round. I even have it, like, on my notepad right here, basically with some things. I have some notes at the bottom. Mahomes is a very interesting case study in what happens when you have a quarterback who has a big arm but not a lot of experience and is going to be high risk. So the upside is you're hoping he's Brett Favre. I mean, he's got a can of an arm. As good as Alex Smith was last year, and people say, oh, Alex Smith started throwing the ball downfield. Like, it's more like Alex Smith was throwing like a 15-yard pass and then Tyreek Hill or Kareem Hunt we're just going off, just running the rest of the way for the touchdown. That's not Patrick Mahomes' game. Patrick Mahomes' game is like, I'm going to throw 80 yards down the field and you're going to catch it or I'm going to overthrow you kind of thing. So it's a big risk in the sense that you could get 35 touchdowns out of him, but you could get like 20, 25 interceptions out of him. So, but in the 11th round, like, you were one of the later teams taking quarterbacks, and I keep preaching, like, I don't understand, like, some of these teams, like, this next team I'm going to take is Ryan, he took Deshaun Watson, or, like, Charlie took like Carson Wentz. Like, I don't understand why teams are taking quarterbacks so high. So you know what? Mad respect for you for like sitting and waiting for someone that you like late in the draft who's a starter who probably has higher upside than any of those guys. Oh no, Patrick Mahomes turns out to be a pumpkin. Well, guess what? I'll just go pick up Jared Goff, or I don't know. Who else is on free agency right now? I haven't even checked. Is it Marcus Mariota? Maybe he turns into something. Maybe he runs the ball or something. I don't know. But like, that's why you wait on quarterback, because there's so many of them. And you took one with a huge amount of upside in the 11th round. That's a great pick. That is an outstanding pick. That's probably the best pick in that round. That's probably the best pick in the last like maybe 3 or 4 rounds around there. That's a great, great pick because he's got so much huge upside that you got him for so cheap. So respect to you. That's a great pick. That's probably your best pick, honestly. Even I like some of your other picks. I like Dalvin Cook, but getting Mahomes there is super good value. And then we have Jadeveon Clowney. I like him. He just needs to stay healthy. Lots of sacks, lots of pressures. Stay healthy. Stay healthy, Jadeveon. We want you. Then we started getting some weird depth pieces like Paul Richardson. I like Paul Richardson. I think he's a good player. I know, where does he go? He just signed for some money with Washington. Alex Smith. I don't know how that's going to work exactly, but I mean, there's value to be had there. People are sleeping on that Redskins offense. Like, Alex Smith was spreading the ball around. Could you tell me? I could be convinced Paul Richardson becomes a decent flex option. I mean, getting that in, like, what, the 12th round? That's a good pick. Nick Chubb. He's a rookie. There's upside. But he plays for the Browns, and he's looked terrible, and he can't catch the ball. I mean, at this point, you're just throwing darts. You're throwing darts at the wall, hoping something to stick. So, you know, I get it. Cool. Nick Chubb's a good player. I'm taking a kicker. Okay. Butker. I mean, he'll score for Kansas City. You took Joyner, who you cut. I think you picked up, what is it, Riddick? Yeah, you picked up Theo Riddick. I feel like I'm missing something, though. Oh, yeah. That's right. I did miss that. I missed you taking John Ross in the 16th round. Huh, I have it right here. Okay, so John Ross is super fast. Holds the scouting combine record for 40 speed. Incredible player. At least speed worthy. Basically missed all of last year. Is Andy Dalton going to be able to get him the ball? That's a retch. That's a stretch. But 16th round, I like that bet. You bet on talent, and he's got talent. Do I love the offense? No. Do I think Andy Dalton's good? No. Do I think the offensive line's good? No. Is Sarah going to be happy with me because I think her Bengals suck? Probably not, but those are the facts. But you know what? If the Bengals somehow become a top 10 offensive team, it'll be because of this guy and AJ Green, because this guy can fly. And if Dalton had an arm, or I don't know, maybe he cuts his arm off and gets a robotic arm and figures out how to throw the ball more than, like, I don't know, 20 yards, John Ross could have some big games. Like, it's weird. You took Brandon Cooks in the 3rd round, and you took John Ross in the 16th round, and I kind of feel like Brandon Cooks is like a higher-end John Ross. He just happens to be in a better offense, and he just happens to play with, he happened to play with 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks, whereas John Ross is stuck with Andy Dalton. It's the only difference. Like, they're both very good players. So, I like the John Ross pick. Overall, I said it earlier on the chat, I liked you as the best out-of-town draft, and even though I was pretty tough, like, I'm tough on the Ingram pick, I'm tough on the Penny pick, I'm tough on the other Ingram pick, wow, double Ingram, and I'm tough on the fact that you took, basically, I'm tough on the fact that you took some defensive players higher than I would have liked. I feel like, again, you're just a little bit of a reach, And I also don't love that you have Michael Thomas on the Saints, and you have Mark Ingram on the Saints, and only one of those guys is probably going to be scoring touchdowns a game. So I don't love that. You're probably going to have to dump one or trade them. But that's a great offense. So if I have to give you a grade, I gave Patrick a B. I don't love your draft as much as Patrick, but I respect that you try to do better than better than the last couple of years. And you've learned from your previous drafts, which I just absolutely I hated. I'm sorry. Jordy Nelson, number 7 overall last year, was terrible. That was not a good pick. So I knew that wasn't a good pick when you made it. I knew it wasn't going to pick when the season was going. I still know it's a bad pick. So judging by last year, basically, I'm not giving you a curve, but C plus, B minus maybe. We'll go C plus. So a little bit higher than average. Not a super amazing draft. You still have work to do, but you have depth at running back, which I think is super important. You have one really good receiver who I really believe in, one really good running back who I believe in. I don't love Cooks. I've made that pretty clear, but maybe he surprises. He's not a bad number 2 receiver by any stretch. If he's a flex, that'd be better. Hopefully someone on your bench turns out to be the second receiver and he's the flex, but you never know. So C plus seems like a good bet just because the team is, I think, a little better than average, and I think you did a good job. I think you had a little bit of trouble on the back end because I'm looking at some of these back end picks, and they were like you took Mark Ingram after LaShawn McCoy, you took Evan Ingram after Randall Cobb, you took Kenny. Oh, I like Kenny Galladay pick. You took Bobby Wagner after Keanu Neal. Patrick might have taken you to the woodshed a little bit on some of these picks, and that's why Patrick's a little higher at a B. But C plus, good draft. You did a good job, Brian. It's not bad. You've laid the foundation. So I don't think you're going to win a championship with this team, but you've laid the foundation to get a good shot at it. So hey, good on you. I know you're going to work for agency and figure this out, so I'm not worried about you. This team's good enough to get to the playoffs. So all you got to do is figure out how to get to a championship and win it. Good luck.